Everyone, welcome in. We'll go ahead and get started in just about 30 seconds or so. We're just about a minute behind. But while we wait, feel free to say hello in the chat and let us know where you're from. Now they're starting to come in. Let's see, we have some hellos starting to flow in. So for those of you in the US, which it seems like that's mostly everyone so far, I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving last week. And so while everyone is getting settled and hellos are still coming in, I'll go ahead and kick us off. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's AEE webinar to recap some of the 2024 developments in energy, and then look forward to trends, challenges, and opportunities to look out for that are waiting for us in 2025, which is somehow just around the corner. My name is Ian Watsky, and I'm the Membership Engagement Specialist at AEE. And I'm joined today by a global panel of energy leaders and experts. And before we do turn it over to the panel, I have the privilege of introducing the moderator for today's webinar, who is Eric Woodruff. So for those of you who have been around AEE for a while, you've probably seen Eric on stage at our events or teaching a CEM course. So hopefully he is a familiar face for some of you. But Eric is the founder of Profitable Green Solutions, which helps customers implement profitable green strategies in non-residential facilities. Eric is also a leading global expert in sustainability, a former AEE president, and is also the youngest inductee into the AEE Energy Managers Hall of Fame, having trained thousands of professionals globally. So I do really appreciate you being here with us today, Eric, and for moderating the panel. Before we do get into the discussion, I will quickly mention a couple of quick reminders for the webinar. So first off, this webinar is being recorded, and I will be sending out a follow-up email tomorrow morning with a link to a recording of the session. And that follow-up email tomorrow will also act as your certificate of attendance to confirm your credits, so long as you did attend live. So this webinar offers 0.3 AEE credits for live attendance. Also in that follow-up email will be a link to view and download the slide deck from today's webinar. And then we should have some time after the initial discussion and the slides for a Q&A. So as we go, if any questions do come up, please just throw them into the Q&A box. We'll try to leave the chat open for a general discussion. And then if you would like to direct one of your questions to a specific panelist, please just make a note of that in the question as well. And that is actually it for housekeeping. So with that, I'd like to officially welcome and turn it over to Eric Woodruff.
Welcome, everybody. It's great to see such a great group of people from around the world. It's just fantastic. I think you're really going to enjoy this. We do this every once in a while, but it's an opportunity to really get some great tools and be thinking about the future, particularly next year. And I think a lot of people are anxious about that, so it's going to be really fantastic. As Bill had mentioned before we went live, we have a really, truly, global effort here. We've got people from the United States, we've got people from Europe, and we've got someone who's actually from the Middle East, but currently in Thailand. So we are hitting most of the continents, and it's a great group, and so I hope you'll really enjoy that. The panel, before we get into it, I just want to give a brief introduction to the panel and the structure of what we'll be doing. We'll talk about the structure first. So each panelist will be given about 5 to 7 minutes to go through what they think is really important, some key trends, things like that. So you're going to hear, just so you don't freak out, you're going to hear about 5 to 7 minutes from each panelist, and then we're going to bring it together for a discussion. Part 2 will be about what are some of the most exciting things you see in 2025, another review from each panelist, and then part 3 will be Q&A. So we really have a nice, at least hour of material and Q&A, and I think it's going to be fantastic. Our panel is very diverse and very skilled. You've got Mary Sotos, who's the Director of Federal Energy Management Program. I'm going to let her introduce herself when she comes out and does her 5-minute talk. But fantastic experience and ability to talk about what the U.S. government is doing and has done over decades of time. Then we've got Mike Umaker, who's going to be who's doing something very interesting. He is a very well-rounded person as far as his experience in government and private industry, but he's part of what I would call a coalition that he'll describe, and he's the executive director of the Energy Efficiency Movement. So you'll get to hear a little bit about that and some of the exciting things they're doing. Then we've got Dr. Fatou Al-Ragam, who's most recent inductee to the AEE Hall of Fame, energy manager. So I'm gonna cry. She's so awesome. So anyway, she's also, if you didn't know this, she's a research scientist and acting director at the Kuwait Institute of Scientific Research. And then we also have Mark Lessance, or Lessons as he would like to be called, and I already screwed that up. Sorry, Mark. Anyway, Mark is Senior Director of Sustainability and Regulatory Affairs at Johnson Controls, and you know they're involved with a lot of things too. So that's going to be the structure. That's your team who we've got today. But before we get into it, I want to turn it over to a really good friend of mine and I think friend of the energy industry in general is Mr. Bill Kent, the Executive Director of AEE, and he has a few words he would like to say.
Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you, Ian. It's certainly an honor to be here with subject matter experts and thought leaders in the industry from around the world. Just wanted to give a welcome on behalf of AEE, our global network of energy professionals, more than 32,000 members of our network around the world, our members, certified professionals, our chapter members, student chapters, Seawheel Group, our Council on Women and Environmental Leadership, our training partners, really all of our global family around the world. Just a little bit about AEE, in case there's anyone here that is not familiar with AEE. We were founded in 1977, incidentally the same year as the U.S. Department of Energy was founded by President Jimmy Carter. And our vision at AEE is to lead the global energy community to meet the challenges of a clean and sustainable future, okay? Certainly very important and impactful work. And really what drives us, I think two things first and foremost, when people ask me what business I'm in, it's easy to say we're in the energy efficiency business, but really we are in the people business. It's all about people, and you'll hear this as a recurring theme anytime you hear me or you come to any AEE events, is our number one value is people first. We put people first. And secondly, we are a global family. We've got panelists here from around the world. We've got members in over 140 countries, and we truly are a global community working for a common cause, common good. So some of the things AEE does, we do webinars like this, multiple ones every month. We've had this year participants from 50 states, over 85 countries, and we're on target to have about 14,000 participants in member webinars this year. We do technical journals. We have a digital e-library with over 200 technical reference books, titles. We have a podcast full of energy with 12 episodes. We do training and certification programs in 10 languages around the world. I'm guessing many of you are certified. If you're certified, just put your certification in the chat and we'll see. I'm a certified energy manager. I know Mark is, I know Fatu is, Eric is an instructor. So certification and training programs. This year we launched officially a formal mentorship program, was very successful. We had participants from 50 countries. So there you go, the global family. We've officially opened up mentorship for next year for our 2025 cycle. The application's there for both mentors and mentees. We have a foundation that awards scholarships to students. We've awarded more than $1.5 million in scholarships to students. And I'm pleased to say that this year in 2024, we're able to award scholarships to every student that applied. So that was significant and we're pleased about that. So I'd just like to say a couple of things about the industry from AEE and my perspective. Certainly a lot going on, a lot of changes. I'm excited to hear from all of our panelists, but challenges and opportunities. I think the first thing is, we've got a huge challenge with climate. July this year was the hottest month on record. If we look at our global temperature increase, looking at trying to maintain a 1.5 degree increase by the year 2100, we're not really doing that great. We're at about 1.1 degree now, on target to hit 1.5 between 2030 and 2035, and on the current trajectory, 3.2 degrees increase by the year 2100, catastrophic effects across the planet. But there is a lot of really good news as well. I think from the latest IEA investment report, World Energy Investment Report, we're now investing twice as much in clean energy as we're investing in fossil fuels. I think that's good. And investment in solar PV now surpasses all other generation technologies combined. We've had a global gathering of people, most recently in Azerbaijan. I know Mike was there. Last year in Dubai, there was the UAE consensus where 200 countries came together, committed to doubling energy efficiency progress and tripling renewable energy capacity by 2030. And just recently at COP in Azerbaijan, the finance COP, where over 300 billion was committed for climate finance. So I think those are some good things that are occurring. One thing I like to say, and I believe it truly, is that we all want the same thing. I think we want clean, reliable, affordable, equitable, and resilient energy. I think there's no question we all want that. We may differ somewhat on the timing, we may differ on the pathway, but I think we all want that as we transition to a clean energy future. We need policy, certainly lots of policy globally. We need financing and the incentives. We also need people, the implementers. We need all of you and all of the engineers to implement energy efficiency and energy conservation measures. And we have lots of proven solutions, and energy efficiency should be the first choice, first solution, the first fuel. One of the things is people. We need people. It's a challenge. It's an opportunity. From our annual survey of our members and the market trends, more than 75% of our respondents from around the world say there's currently a shortage of energy efficiency professionals, and almost 40% plan to retire within the next 5 to 10 years. So when we look at the growth in the industry, the retirement, workforce is a major topic, and I think it will be addressed by our panelists today. So I think in closing, I'd just like to say, I view this as an opportunity, really a once in a generation opportunity. I mean, who can say that? The effect that we have and the opportunities going forward just is exciting. So, I look back to when President Obama said, we're the first generation to feel the impact of climate change and the last generation that can do something about it. He said that in 2014. 10 years ago, and it's still true today. And I'm excited for all of the difference that the AEE members and all of you are making and will continue to make, and have a significant impact, on the world and on climate impact as well. So with that, I want to just thank all of our panelists again. Thanks for allowing me to spend a few minutes with you, and I look forward to the discussion today.
Awesome. Thank you, Bill. I think this is just well said, and I also want to thank Ian for setting all this up. If you guys can give a virtual clap out to Ian Watsky. He does a lot of work behind the scenes to get this together. And Bill just stole my thunder. I was going to give you guys a little talk about why this is important, why you need to listen to these people from around the world. And thanks again, Bill. That's why we're friends. So anyway, he did it in the most elegant way, as he always does. And he's speaking with his heart in the association. And I think that's going to be great, because we're going to be talking about the need for workforce development and things like that as well. So Ian, can you throw up a couple slides for me, at least the first slide? And I wanted to share some data that I recently put into the CEM program, literally September of 2004. If you can see this animation, and it might be going a little fast for you, but that's okay. I just want to let you know, there's a little bit of bad news, right? We have a problem that we're going to be talking about and solutions that we're going to be talking about. And the bad news is energy use per person, as you can see on the screen, has actually gone up around the world. It's kind of like I've been working on this a long time, and it's a little bit defeating to feel like you're not making progress, but that's the fact, and that's where we have to work from. Now, some of that energy is renewable, and I'll have a good news on that as well. But around the world, more people are getting, I would call it, addicted to energy, and that will cause, and I think it already has caused, many conflicts around the world. So there's some real reasons why we have to pay attention. Ian, can you hit the next slide, please? Now, a little bit of good news. This is something that we track every year in the CEM program, and I was really surprised. If you look at this slide, up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see rejected energy. Traditionally, let's just say the US, the United States, this tracks all where the energy comes from. And what I'm most interested in is how much of it's thrown away, right? And we're throwing away about 67%. That was in 2022. And if you go to the next slide, Ian, you'll watch this animation will come up where that dropped to 61, okay? I've been watching this a long time. Usually it goes down about 1% a year, and you can read the blue text that during the pandemic, it went down about 10%. But to go down 6% in 1 year is showing progress. And so that's the good work we're doing and other people around the world. And then, Ian, if you can hit the last slide I wanted to hit on was just looking at some of the things Bill had talked about. This is low carbon fuel sources around the world. It's just fascinating to me. And we might, if you can, Ian, hit this animation twice, because it's really worth seeing. You watch Africa go from practically no renewable energy, just literally leapfrogging the United States as far as adaptation of renewable energy. So a lot of exciting things there. And I think that it's an exciting time, and it's good to hear that we're solving some of the world's problems, even if it's not quite at the pace we need to, we still are making progress. So with that, that's all I've got. And the first panelist is going to be Mike, and I want to let the experts from around the world speak. So I'd like to start off with Mike with his 5-minute, 7-minute answer. And so my question to you, Mike, is in your opinion, what needs to happen workforce development wise for significant progress to occur? And Mike, it's yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Eric, and also warm welcome from my side. I'm based in Switzerland, so I will make sure we keep the 5 minutes, hopefully. Let me first introduce you to the energy efficiency movement. So we empower industry for greater efficiency and unite leaders of industry to harness their collective knowledge and resource in advancement in energy efficiency. What you can see here, while what Ian is showing as well, is kind of the huge power of network and we have built up since its start. So we are a global network that brings together these organizations and promote energy efficient technologies and practices. By providing this collaborative environment, we foster at the same time also the knowledge and best practices sharing, and to help to address global energy challenges and accelerate the progress towards a more obviously sustainable and low carbon future. Today, we have more than 550 companies. To be accurate, it's 557 companies that joined the movement, including obviously its founders, ABB and Alfa Laval. We have DHL, Flowserve, Sulzer, across the globe. I would usually say it's like a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, if I can split up the world in 3 pieces. It started in 2021. And I'm also very happy that earlier this year we could sign the partnership agreement with the AEE and promoting their certified energy auditor program, the certified energy manager program, as well as the certified industrial energy professional program, because we believe those really have a contribution and an impact to also lift energy efficiency up to the next level. But now let me go into the question that Eric, you posed to me about the importance of workforce development. And yes, it's about the people. We have published earlier this year a report which is called From Insight to Implementation, which was focusing actually on business investments. And we interviewed and asked or launched a survey across the globe with more than 1,300 business leaders to get their insight. And there was actually a positive surprise on one side. Skills, which also includes upskilling, reskilling, also increased resourcing of the people to enable the energy transition, supporting as well the energy service companies in this transition, was actually ranked by more than 40% with the highest answer, followed by the great reinforcement, what you can just see here now on the screen. Thank you, Ian, for sharing it. And the interesting part is when we looked one level deeper into it, skills was ranked as the most important action. However, at the same time, more than 37% said that they need support with skills. So it's kind of a conflict by its own. And organizations like the AEE play here a crucial role. This is also the reason why we have teamed up with the AEE. But in other words, upskilling and reskilling are crucial for managing the energy transition and enhancing as well energy efficiency for several reasons. Number one is about adopting to new technologies. As the energy sector shifts towards clean energy, workers need to be trained to handle the new technologies and systems effectively. And yes, there are very known technology already out there that can be used today, but it isn't important. The second is about job creation and transition. We always hear that energy transition will also create new job opportunities. And I think it's an important argument as well to do these invests in upskilling and reskilling the workers to help this transition to make it smooth. The third is also the inclusivity and diversity. Targeted training programs can help to bring underrepresented groups into the energy sector, promoting diversity and inclusivity, which enriches the workforce and fosters innovation. Therefore, I was very glad to see the slide shown by Eric, that we have seen regions that really kind of flip the coin more or less overnight. Efficiency and innovation is also another one which is important. I mean, we have to make sure that the resources are skilled, that they also are aware of what is out there. How can we faster reach the progress towards a more sustainable future? And as a last, I would also like to emphasize the IEA, the International Energy Agency, that underscores the need for the skills improvement. It also helps the collaboration between government, industries, and workers, ensuring at the end a fair and inclusive transition. It is important that we map and try to map as well these skills that are required and the qualifications, so we are prepared moving in this direction. So in summary, I would say like the reskilling is essential and the upskilling is essential for a successful energy transition, that the workforce is prepared to meet the demands of the evolving energy landscape. Let me just give me 2 sentences as well on the importance on the funding, because that goes at the end as well into it. And then I will be hopefully on time. So some of you have heard we had just closed the COP, so the 29th Conference of Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which took place last month in Baku, where actually, yes, I mean, we can now debate a bit about it or not, but there was a tripling in terms of invest to 300 billion by 2035 for the developing nations. And
Looks like we should maybe be investing in better internet in Switzerland. Are you okay?
and how can all parties be combined effort?
Hey, Mike,
Eric?
we lost you there for about 10 seconds. We just lost the feed dropped. Can you repeat what you just said?
Okay, yes, sorry, thank you for jumping in. So we have been focusing there on lifting up the discussions around the mobilizing of public and private funding to double down on the efficiency progress. So there are 3 areas. Public finance is important, that it is integrated, and energy efficiency is part of the agenda. Private finance is important, obviously, to implement the positive incentives and gain the return on invest with the equipment. But at the end, it's also important that we have combined efforts, standardized energy efficiency guidelines with broader climate finance approaches and so on. So I think to sum up here, with skills and finance at the same time, it's crucial to manage the energy transition. And with this, I would like to give the word back to you, Eric, for the next page from the next person.
That was a great job, Mike. Thank you so much. And just so you all know, anyone could lose internet. So if I lose internet, which is highly possible in Kentucky, Bill, you're in charge. And I'm just giving you back the favor of stealing the thunder. So anyway, that happens, Mike. Thanks for sticking it out, and I'm glad it got back. And I would say, if you guys didn't see if you folks didn't see the COP, some of the presentations, Al Gore did an amazing presentation. He kind of talked a little bit about what Mike was saying about disadvantages and advantages in different parts of our geographies being disadvantaged with pollution. And he's real passionate about it. If you get a chance to Google his talk at the COP conference, it was fantastic. So I think you'll find a lot of passion if you're looking for that to get re-energized. That's another source for you as well. But let's turn on Dr. Fatou, way over in Asia today. And if you could, start off telling us a little bit about, I'll just call it KISSR, which sounds a little strange, but that is the acronym of the organization that you are director of. And the question I have for you is, how can we better fund the energy transitions that are required? That's the question I have for Fatou. So Fatou, you've got the floor, and thanks so much.
Thank you, Eric. I just wanted to say that I'm not the director of the Institute. I'm the director of Science and Technology in the Energy and Building Research Center. So we have several centers working on different areas, and I'm the current director of Science and Technology for Energy and Building. As you mentioned, that I'm currently in Thailand, and why I'm here, I'm actually attending the 13th International Forum on Energy for Sustainable Development. And this event was actually been sponsored by the United Nations, and it's been hosted in Bangkok. So why I'm saying this, because one of the important topics that we were talking about actually throughout the various sessions is actually energy transition and energy security, in which there was a very important topic that was discussed. How do we get the money? Like Bill mentioned, like one of the things that we need to focus on financing energy transition. So how can we get that money? Everyone was wondering, no matter where you are around the world, there are different ways and means, and we need to know about some of the available pathways in which we can actually find ways to fund such projects. So as you can see here, like I've listed some of the pathways in which we can think about the funding. So maybe there are more, but those were the ones that I've realized. Like for example, through sovereign wealth funds. So I found out like some of the countries are utilizing their wealth funds to fund such projects. And I will show later on in my presentation some of the examples of these different pathways. So these can play a pivotal role in financing large-scale renewable energy projects and cutting-edge innovations. And as we all know, we need a lot of capital, especially upfront. So these are significant resources. They can actually catalyze major advancements and also signal strong commitments to clean energy development. The other pathway is through public-private partnership, and we probably have seen a lot of examples in many countries. These, they represent another critical value by fostering collaboration between governments and private entities. So we can share the risks and benefits of energy projects, unlocking significant potential for growth and innovation. Another platform is through green bonds. These are emerging as a powerful tool to mobilize capital for sustainable initiatives. These instruments allow us to attract investment specifically for renewable energy and energy efficiency projects, creating a targeted and impactful funding mechanism. And also, Bill mentioned the policies that are needed. So to sustain progress, strong renewable energy policies should be in place. Clear regulatory frameworks, long-term targets, and incentives for clean energy adoption are vital in building investor, because we need to build the investor confidence in order for them to invest in these huge projects and to drive sustained action. Also, there's one important pathway, which is through regional cooperation. They can also amplify the impact of the efforts. As everyone was probably mentioning, working together and sharing resources, countries can achieve greater efficiency and accelerate integration in many projects. There is also investment in research and development, and this is what I do. Is basically I work in a research institute where we advise the government on how we can go about energy transition and how we can maintain energy security, which is very important, and advancing technology and fostering local expertise. These are very essential for driving innovation and ensuring the long-term sustainability for the energy systems. Another thing maybe that is not very prevalent in many countries around the world, but it is in our part of the world, in the GCC, which is reforming energy subsidies. We still have subsidies for energy prices. So by reforming these subsidies, we can actually transition to by transitioning to market-based pricing. This is what's happened in some of the countries like in UAE and Saudi Arabia. We can promote energy efficiency and reduce waste, creating a level playing field for renewable energy to thrive. And also, at the same time, the money that is being saved by saving these subsidies can actually provide funding for green projects. There is also the international climate funds that we can capitalize on. And there is also robust financial markets, and I'm going to show you some examples. And of course, what is very important is also energy efficiency programs. They remain the cornerstone for our efforts. By reducing energy demand through innovative programs, we can complement renewable energy adoption and achieve balanced and sustainable energy ecosystems. And if you can move to the following slide. So as I said, like I'm going to show you some examples, like using the sovereign wealth funds. This is what happened in Saudi Arabia. The public investment fund provided the capital for creating NEOM green hydrogen project, which is a huge project in which about $8 billion was invested to build this hydrogen project that is going to provide hydrogen through ammonia, and they aim to produce around 600 tons of green hydrogen per day starting 2026. If we're going to go to the following slide, there is another example for the public-private partnership also in Saudi Arabia. They've partnered with a company in Japan through power purchase agreements and by building wind power in two places in the Al-Ghat project, which is gonna provide wind energy at a production cost. They claim it's gonna be the lowest in the whole world with about 1.56 cents per kilowatt hour. And another one, which is in Wadi al-Shamal project, which is gonna be providing electricity from wind with the cost of 1.7 cents per kilowatt hour. Then there is an example of an Oman, the following slide. Also for a public-private partnership, it's a high port Duqm project in which there is a collaboration with BP. They anticipate providing or producing green hydrogen by using renewable energy, and they're going to produce around 330,000 tons of green ammonia in the first phase and over 650,000 tons in the second phase. And then there is the following platform, which is about green bonds in UAE. Masdar actually issued several green bonds. And the first attempt, they've issued green bonds that were worth $750 million in green bonds. And the second round, they've raised around $1 billion for green bonds. And as an example for regional cooperation and collaboration, there is what I would like to mention about the Gulf Cooperation Council countries' electricity grid interconnection. This actually through the sharing of capacity, where different countries can buy from each other, and they can provide the needed capacity throughout difficult times. And this is what actually happened to us in Kuwait during this summer. We actually capitalized on using some of the capacity from the connecting grid. As I can see, there are some slides that I'm not there in my presentation. The following one. There is also the issue of the International Climate Fund. Through the Green Climate Fund, different countries can actually apply for funding. And there are many projects. If you go to their website and you can see how you can benefit from such fund. And there is a lot of projects that have been funded by this entity, and we can capitalize on it. Bahrain have utilized it, Jordan have used it, and many countries around the world was actually utilizing these funds. There was a slide, I don't know why it's not there in my deck, but it's about the local financial markets. Local financial markets can also empower energy transition, and this is what happened in the Saudi Stock Exchange, in which they were actually supporting the companies that have the social responsibilities through ESG, and they had put their portfolios and the stock markets trying to empower these companies. So these are the different ways and pathways that I wanted to share that we can consider whenever we're considering raising funding for energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatou. That was fantastic. And I think everyone was blown away with some of the graphics and some of the actual things that are going on over there. So that's really great. So thank you. Let's transition and allow our panelists to wake up, because it is hard. I think the hardest thing in the world is to watch a webinar for 30 minutes and not be talking. It's difficult. So Mary, you are next. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity to talk about what's going on in the United States. So I know this is kind of a rhetorical question, because the federal government has done a tremendous amount in the last few years for energy, more than, well, I think it could be debatable, more than any other time in history. But Mary, can you just elaborate on what the federal government is doing to help with the funding and the workforce development problems we have?
Absolutely. So good morning, everyone. I'm Mary Sotos. I'm the director of the Federal Energy Management Program. We're an office within the U.S. Department of Energy. But fun fact, you'll see 51 years of empowering agencies to lead by example. Our office was actually formed as a presidential initiative predating DOE during the oil crisis. So the first, one of the first actions, at least that was focused on the federal government, said, if we're facing a crisis of fuels, let's at least start by leading by example, conserving energy at home. And so to be able to do that, there was a focus to first get data to say, okay, we have all these different federal facilities. You see here, 350,000 buildings, 600,000 vehicles. How much energy are they all actually using? Can we get that reported on an annual basis, consolidated? Can we start a process of requiring annual energy audits so we can identify where there's, areas for improvement? And then from there, I think we've, FEMP was formed as a way to partner with federal agencies to put that into action. So most agencies have some really strong and actually quite, I think, ambitious and rigorous statutory requirements. So independent of what a given administration might be, Congress over these 51 years has been continually sort of raising the bar on federal agencies. And when I say federal agencies, and you're thinking all these buildings, there's an incredible diversity of missions. So these are not just any buildings. You can picture, standard office buildings, but also warehouses, air traffic control towers, federal courthouses, laboratories that are testing food safety, DOE's own 17 national laboratories, doing really innovative energy work, all the way to, hospitals, medical centers. So it's really a huge variety of building types of mission, and they all are required to be efficient, to identify opportunities for conservation. There's actually a requirement for renewable energy procurement, for water conservation. And so FEMP is here to help achieve that. And I think we've been pretty pleased to see that over time, and this is, something I think folks don't always realize, the federal government has actually reduced its energy intensity by 50% since 1975. So we have more efficient equipment. We've renovated so many of those facilities to incorporate better technology, better controls. And increasingly now we're looking at, newer technologies interacting with the grid, as well as more what agencies are asking for as more on-site resilience. So I have a picture here of one of the projects we helped fund, which is, it's really cool. It's out in Hawaii. It's the Mauna Loa Observatory. So it's a fairly remote location, but again, gathering scientific data that's, again, sort of part of the critical federal mission. But we've helped put solar panels and battery storage so that if they are disconnected from the grid, they can still keep running. We can go to the next slide, and I can talk a little bit sort of how FEMP has stepped in to address what I think you heard earlier this morning, which is like the people part of it, like the people dimension to, how when you have these big policies, how do you actually make implementation a reality? So one of the ways we do that is we work with the key stakeholders you see on the left there. So we partner closely with every administration, with industry. We work closely with ESCOs. Performance contracting is one of the key tools that we're able to put into practice with agencies, as well as Congress. And you'll see here the MUSH markets, which is always sort of a funny acronym, but it's municipal, universities, states, hospitals. So any other type of level of government that has a similar, I would say similar profile, similar constraints that the federal sector does. Our goal is to say the federal sector has, the most resources, this huge diversity of operations. Whatever we're learning here, we really should be leading by example and sharing with all those other entities, so we don't have to all reinvent the wheel. So I always show this slide to help articulate that when we set a policy, we say we want more energy efficiency, that there's a lot of stages that agencies or really any entity need to go through. There's policy and planning. What does the policy require? What are the specific targets? There's also executive orders that come through with every administration. So even just breaking down all of those different requirements is a critical first step. FEMP also provides an assistance with analysis and strategy. So asking questions like, does solar make sense on this building, given its usage, given its electric rates, given the incentives from the utility? Or things we're increasingly, again, looking at resilience. What would happen if the grid goes down? What are the costs? What are the risks? How do we plan the different options for how to prepare for that? We provide a lot of support on execution and funding, O&M. I mean, again, if you're bringing in a lot of new equipment and technology into buildings, we try and focus on how do you train energy managers to know how to use that technology and operate it in the way that it was designed. And then, of course, I think a critical part of workforce development is always results and recognition. Particularly in the federal government, a lot of what we do sort of stays anonymous, right? But at the same time, I think there's an opportunity to shine a light on federal folks who are really making the difference and achieving the kind of results that I was just talking about. So we can go to the next slide. So that's a little bit about what FEMP does. But in addition to this workforce recognition, training, grant funding and additional resources around project execution is critical. I mentioned that we work with performance contracting, which means that we're able to help agencies leverage third-party finance into these energy efficiency projects. And that's rare. Usually, I mean, I think it's the only part of the federal budget where a federal entity can essentially take out a loan because they know that the savings have to be measured, verified, and they create a payback schedule. So you're literally paying that back through savings. So that's the primary tool that we use. But we found that there's so many additional requirements into these projects, whether it's adding some resilience measures, adding additional upgrades that may not necessarily have huge energy savings or cost savings over time, but are really critical for the underlying infrastructure. We found over time that just having some additional funding to put into those projects, even if you're financing 90% of it, really makes the difference. So it can take a good project, make it great, it can expand it. And in some cases, it just helps the project get done. If you picture how hard it is just to get just regular building renovations, sort of standard construction stuff executed on time, and then, layer on top of that federal procurement rules, requirements, changes in leadership, you have a new base commander, then you have to start the project, educate all the stakeholders on the project. Having some other funding to say, we actually need to execute this project, this funding needs to be used by this date, can be just another reinforcement, another partner to make it happen. So here, this is just a snapshot of the grant funding part of our mission. We've been able to use to date $290 million of investment. So this is congressional appropriations as well as funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law, and leverage it with private finance to reach federal operations in all the places that you see depicted here. So I think for us, this is a really successful model of where we can add that additional funding, leverage additional, private finance, and use this performance contracting model. And then the final piece I'll say, I could talk a lot more about, I think, the other programming that we offer, but I'll just close with a quick, you can go to the next slide, just a quick note on the a place, I guess, to put in a little shameless plug for one of the ways that we bring federal agencies together every year. And even if you're not a federal, either a federal agency or work directly with feds, I really think that what we're able to provide is a good, foundation that could at least, be broadly educational to a variety of folks. So, so this is the other place where we do a lot of our workforce development. We have our recognition ceremony and a lot of other stakeholder engagement. So I'll just put that in there to, ask me more about energy exchange if you're interested. But that's it from me.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Mary. It's great to see someone carry on the tradition of that excellence. And I don't know about you all, but I was blown away by that data point you mentioned, 50% energy intensity reduction in roughly 50 years. And, I just can't imagine how polluting a building would have had to be, And so why I say that is because as you're thinking about 2025, think about what you also can't imagine. I can't imagine my life now without a cell phone. Can't probably navigate a car and get somewhere without those tools. And so I asked the audience to think about, where in 10 years can you not imagine? Where could your work like create something that is unimaginable right now? So think about that. And Mary, thanks so much. Let's go on to our last panelist, which is Mark Lessons. And Mark is going to tackle a very difficult question. We've been, at the last few conferences, we've been pushing AI stuff. We've been demonstrating AI in special sessions and things like that. And the problem is that AI uses 10 times as much as a normal Google search. And so you're trying to decarbonize using AI and do electrification. And there's just some I would say it's kind of a paradox, right? You're using more energy to try to use less. So Mark is going to tackle that question. Good luck, buddy. And with that, I turn it over to Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Eric, for the great opportunity that you put in front of me there, and thanks also to AEE for the invitation to me to come share my perspective. It really is an honor to get to speak to so many of the folks that are implementing the energy efficiency and decarbonization technologies. Certainly, some of the ones that I'll touch on here momentarily. If you're not familiar with Johnson Controls, we are a pure play building and industrial technology solutions provider. So think heating, cooling, and ventilation, building management systems and controls, fire and security, digital solutions that help manage and connect buildings and other assets all together. So we have there's a lot at stake a lot at stake for us in the energy transition, especially on the demand side and the influences that we can have and vice versa that it will have on us. My role within Johnson Controls, I work on our sustainability team, and I'm focused on a day-to-day basis on our Scope 3 emissions, managing really the carbon footprint of our suppliers upstream of our organization and what we are sourcing, as well as, and very critically, the carbon emissions of our customers and what happens to these solutions that we can offer after they leave our direct control or leave our hands. And so when we think about the carbon emissions of the products and the services that we can provide, that represents by far the majority of our carbon footprint. And really a fun opportunity for us to think about how we can influence the energy transition and the progress toward net zero emissions by 2050. You raised two topics that are near and dear to my heart, Eric, and I'll try to touch on both of those briefly. The first being AI and the build out of data centers, the second being electrification. I would argue both of those are going to have a pretty profound impact on energy demand and energy management. They're also very close, like I said, very near and dear to my heart because they will have a huge influence on our Scope 3 emissions and our carbon footprint and our own transition plan to support the transition to net zero. So starting with data centers and AI, yes, I don't think it's news to anyone that we are seeing a explosion in various applications and end uses for AI, and that is very exciting. And I think that's one of those things I would highlight, Eric, if we think 10 years down the road, something that we might not be able to live without. It could be generative AI and the various end uses that we aren't fully aware of yet, but will play a critical role in our day-to-day lives and ultimately how we work and play and live. It's the explosion in those applications is driving a similar explosion in the need for data centers that in order to process all of that computing power that AI uses. And yes, I mean if we look at forecasts for energy demand, it's very possible and that we ultimately see data centers being their own category of energy end uses when we, at the end of the day, when we look up, where all of our energy end uses are going. It's not, it might not just be buildings, transportation, and industrial and power anymore. And so there's a lot of incoming demand, I would say the bright side of all of this, though, is that a lot of the hyperscalers, so-called hyperscalers, as well as others that are in the space building out these data centers, are very aware of the demands and the resource constraints that puts, on the energy grid, as well as the carbon footprint that they have, and are trying to do something about that. And so we've also seen, in the past 2 years, just huge advancements in energy efficiency, in cooling technology for those data centers, as well as other advancements in power management and our ability to really up our ability to efficiently deliver cooling for the computing power that's required. And so, yes, we will see a exponential increase in data center and power demand. I don't think there's really anything. I'd be lying if I said that we weren't going to see overall net increases in consumption, but I also don't think that has to be the entire story here. We are also, certainly at Johnson Controls and I imagine elsewhere, looking at the specific requirements for cooling within data centers and coming up with ways to build purpose-built cooling solutions for data centers, so that data center cooling doesn't have the same type of application or needs as traditional cooling end uses, and so we can actually do purpose-built cooling solutions that are much more energy efficient in the way that they actually deliver that cooling to the data center. I suspect advancements that we can make, as well as advancements in things like liquid chip and other types of high density cooling. We're going to see continued innovation in that space so that we can help manage this energy transition and continue to build out the data centers that we need to feed this transition, while lessening the paradoxical effect that we're going to have. So there's a lot of opportunity there. I'd also argue there's a lot of opportunity to think about in the build out of data centers as infrastructure where we can also invest in energy efficiency in other parts of our infrastructure and other parts of our built environment that might be on the same grid or subgrid region of that data center. If we think about, or if we build a data center, obviously we want to build that as efficiently as possible. But in order to offset the increase in demand of that data center, can we look at other end uses within the community to invest in energy efficiency so that the overall net effect of that data center could actually be positive? I think that there's a lot of potential there if we think beyond the four walls of the data center itself. Again, it's transitioning this into an opportunity to really make significant impact in the way that we use energy and continue to reduce emissions. The other area that I'll touch on briefly here is electrification, and this is another area where, as we electrify end uses, we're doing that to boost efficiency, to reduce our reliance on the consumption and combustion of fossil fuels, and obviously to reduce our carbon footprint. But again, this is another area where, as we do that fuel switching, we are going to see increased demand on the electric grids. So, there's a lot of different end uses, a lot of different sectors that are going through this electrification transition. From my perspective, most of our focus is on the building and industrial sectors, where when we look at electrification, we look at this as an opportunity to do so beneficially or strategically. And so, the big thing for us is the advancement of heat pumps and the deployment of heat pumps, both in large commercial and industrial buildings, as well as the residential sector. It's really again, it's another huge opportunity here where we can not only reduce or potentially eliminate the combustion of fossil fuels inside of a building. When we do this strategically and deploy high efficiency heat pumps, we're also dramatically reducing the site energy consumption in raw BTUs that are used in that to provide that heating. So if you go back to that LB&L flow chart, you can, in all of that wasted energy, a lot of that is coming from direct combustion of fuels by inefficient appliances. As we start to electrify and do that efficiently, we really are dramatically reducing our carbon emissions while also contributing to a more manageable energy grid and larger energy system. So again, lots of opportunity there as we think about the best way to go through this electrification of end use process. I would say both, to wrap this up, both of these issues that I'm touching on have profound impacts on energy demands and specifically on the electricity grid. They also have profound impacts on long-term carbon emissions. But again, if we can continue to be strategic and thoughtful about the way that we do this, this can contribute to a net positive, not only for emissions, but for our own quality of life when it comes to the management of energy as a utility, as a benefit to all of society. And so I think, again, like you said, these challenges are real and they're significant, but there's also plenty of opportunity for us as we go forward to rethink or I would say expand on our thinking and the broader energy system and what that future is going to look like going forward.
Thanks so much, Mike. It's great. I said Mike. Mark, see, I keep messing up your name. See, it's just, I'm gonna get in trouble. Anyway, so hey, thanks again. I think that Mark brings up a really good point that the holistic approach is, the way you got to see things. I was surprised. I'll tell you a personal story before we go into just to cue up Mike Umaker, I'm going to be asking you in a few minutes, what are you most excited about for 2025? But I want to share a quick story that relates to Mark's, talk. We put solar panels in a battery on our house a couple years ago, and we sized it. They want to size it. We took advantage of the FEMP work also, or really just the IRA and the BIL, but we took advantage of the tax benefits. We did it, and they size these things typically to be about 70 to 80% of your building load. But what I've learned is that by having the real-time measurement on my app on my phone, I could see exactly what the house is using all the time. I was able to just go back and reduce. And now the house is carbon neutral, and I didn't expect that. So some of the side kind of benefits of watching all the time, much like watching a scale in a diet, it might help. These are things that have, there's a holistic. The supply was the panels. The use went down after we had free energy, from the sun. So it was just fascinating. But I totally agree with you on the holistic thing. And Mike, let's have you answer this question about, we've talked a little bit about some theory stuff here, but what are you most excited about for 2025?
Yeah, absolutely. And just also to share, we tried to reduce also our house temperature by 1 degree. Now winter is coming. So my family is always like, when can we get the heat up? No, we are kind of third winter in time. Average house temperature is by 1.5 degrees lower. So also leading the example. Obviously, coming to your question, and I think at the moment, as you pointed out, right, today there will be a strong focus still also on the supply side. So the tripling global renewable energy, which goes up to 11 gigawatts by 2030, which is actually, just ask my friend Google on that one, is actually 24 times the energy consumption of the United States. So on one hand, it's the supply side, or low-hanging fruit technologies that we heard by Mark on AI and smart grids and so on to enhance the efficiency and reliability. But what personally excites me is the topic, and it's a very complex topic as well, is the topic around sector coupling. I'm pretty sure many of you have already heard about it, what it means. But in simple terms, it means the integration and coordination of different energy sectors, such as electricity or heating or cooling, or with industries, for example, to maximize at the end the use of the energy and to enhance the overall efficiency. If we keep in mind that today, even still more than 50% of the energy is produced is actually wasted. So there's a huge potential around this. There are the obvious benefits by integrating these sectors, then that we can improve the energy efficiency, enhance energy security. Sometimes it's obviously more in a closed system, but at the end, it also supports decarbonization efforts. And it helps to balance the grid by using the excess of renewable energy for heating, cooling, and obviously also at the end for producing fuels. That is still an important factor in that sense. But these solutions provide, for example, the possibility to reduce the CO2 for the growing demand, also on the data center side. And let's just stay a bit on the data center. I mean, as I was just mentioning, I'm using Google, or we have Copilot or ChatGPT and so on. The data centers, they are counting for a substantial heat loss production just on the process where they are operating. So the opportunity here is to take heat as an energy source that can be captured for the district heatings in cities, in communities, and also providing by this a sustainable way to heat residentials and commercial buildings. But there are challenges, and I think these challenges are very important that we are aware of them. It has to take advantages from. Can you still hear me? I see there are low bandwidths.
You're back, and it's okay. It disappears for 5 or 6 seconds, but keep going because you're onto something.
I was using the word Google and so on. So at the end, it also needs policies that can support this, because it is not just one company that has to talk to another company. It's about how do you set up the contract. What is the price that you manage or that you sell? The kind of because it becomes not a waste, it becomes an energy supply again. How do you make the distribution? How do you make sure that there will be also in 5 years still heat provided to warm during winter times and so on? So for me, I'm very excited to see a bit this journey where this goes, and also this requires strong public-private collaboration. And I'm very excited to see where 2025 will bring us also on this chapter, because I personally believe we are just scratching the surface on this one, and so therefore this makes me exciting for 2025.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. And I was curious if Fatou, if you would like to tag on to what Mike was talking about. And I apologize, we might not have gone as far. I think you had some more discussion on energy security that I might not have asked you about, but I know you wanted to talk about cross-sector coupling. And so I'm just going to turn the floor over to you and allow you to answer what are you most excited about for 2025. And if you want to weave in energy security, that's cool too.
Okay, thanks, Eric. So, I mean, being in the energy sector, like for the past few years, was a little bit scary, especially that I come from that part of the world where we actually contribute in fossil fuel generation. And where we felt like sometimes it's like, it's just maybe I'm not in the right place, especially that I'm interested about the energy efficiency and so on. But actually lately, the talks started to become very realistic. By attending many conventions and webinars and so on, now everyone realized like energy transition is not something that is set in stone. It depends on where you are around the world, what are your capabilities, but the whole world will have to do it together. So what I'm excited about is now everyone understands the language of the other, and we realize that it is important for us to collaborate because no country, no association, no entity can do it alone. We all have to move in together in a way that is can be adopted by the different countries or different associations, whatever, no matter where we are around the world. What I'm also excited about is I've always worked in energy efficiency, and I've always felt like for the past 30 years in my life, I was talking gibberish, but now our language is more understandable because now we are put on the map, specifically when last year, when COP addressed the importance of energy efficiency, that we have to double the rate of energy efficiency. Now everyone is talking about energy efficiency. So I'm so excited. I'm in the right field, I'm in the right place with the right organization, with the right people, so we have a lot to do for the many, many years to come, especially if we're looking into the energy efficiency, because it's a language now everyone understands. It's actually, for example, it's through collaboration, we can move faster, we can move in a smarter way. And also, we can, through that, also, we're not going to be leaving anyone behind us. Okay. And also, like when I mentioned the collaboration, it is very important because through collaboration, we can push boundaries. If some countries are rich in energy sources, others are rich in technology development. So it's a matter of exchange. So if I have the source, you have the technology, you can sell me the technology and I can provide you with the source. So that's why it is very, very important for us to collaborate. The issue is global. So as I said, like the collaboration is foundational for the successful energy transition. No matter where we are around the globe, we can all work together in order to make this transition happen. And the very important thing that everyone probably touched on, and which I've heard also in the past few days during the event that I'm attending, the importance of capacity development. And being part of the AEE family, we know this, and we've been doing this for many years in the past, and we will continue to do this, and it's going to be very important for the next transitional stages.
Yeah, thanks, Fatou. Just to clarify, when you say capacity building, we're talking about people. Is that what you meant?
Yes, I mean, yes, yeah.
Okay. That's great. Excellent. Excellent. Well, hey, I want to go to Mary next, but I want to comment a little bit about what Fatou said, because for the audience, if you think about this word transition, it's somewhat of a powerful word because it implies if you're not part of it, you're a little left behind. So use that word with your people, with your people you're trying to convince to do projects. It's like a movement that you're either a part of or you're not, and people don't want to miss out on something. So feel free to use that. But Mary, I know that you've got a lot of insights on this. I'm curious what you're most excited about for 2025.
Yeah, so many different things I think that are really encouraging signs, and I appreciated you putting that in context up front. When I go through LinkedIn, it's like a combination of like, oh no, this is the worst time in history. There's all this stuff, but also like really seeing the progress. I mean, it can be both, right? So some of the things that I'm most encouraged by, I would say, thinking about where the federal sector stands, is we have an incredible pipeline of projects. So when I say projects, these are comprehensive, generally performance contracts that are going to combine energy efficiency, on-site renewable energy generation, often things like battery storage, as well as electrification. So I would consider all those things a sort of comprehensive project. We have a huge pipeline of comprehensive projects teed up to be executed in this fiscal year, which in the federal space starts in October. So this year and next year. So we think about it in terms of total investment into those federal facilities. And that total investment is like record levels. Again, we've been tracking this for 51 years. I mean, a record level of activity, of savings, cost savings, renewable energy generation, if we are able to actually land those projects. So I'm excited about the potential of those projects. I'm very motivated by the focus to keep that momentum, to keep the eye on the prize to actually get those things through. So that's, I would say, probably the biggest encouraging sign I'm seeing. But also I was thinking, when we were reflecting on the challenges and opportunities that increase in load from data centers poses, I'll say at least something interesting that I wouldn't have expected that we see on the federal side is we do a lot with utility partnerships. So we bring together the top 10 utilities that are serving the biggest federal loads. And the conversation around the opportunity for energy efficiency and things like, I should say, demand response, using electric vehicles as, bidirectional charging, load flexibility programs more generally. It's a very different conversation, I think, than it was several years ago. And I think because there's such a, increased demand on the system, there's also much more opportunity to say, how can we change that demand? If there's customers like the federal government who are, who have some goals and targets that are asking them to try these things, like, we are a willing partner. And we're really seeing utilities, I think, more open to that and that sort of innovation than I've seen in the past. So that's also something I'm encouraged by.
Oh, thanks, Mary. Appreciate that. And Mark, what do you think? What are you most excited about for 2025?
Yeah, maybe one thought here that I think maybe builds off of a lot of what we've heard today already is that I think it's important to keep in mind that the cost of a kilowatt hour that you pay is not necessarily reflective of all of the costs and benefits associated with that kilowatt hour. Yes, you pay a electric rate, but the cost of generating and moving those electrons or those BTUs, if you're talking about fuel, is not necessarily reflected in that cost. And the environmental effects or impacts of that energy is also most of the globe not really truly reflected. And so I think that has profound impacts for the ways that we are going to finance this energy transition. And it's going to have profound impacts on the motivators behind a lot of not only the energy efficiency programs, but the demand response and buildings to grid integration potential that Mary was describing. And so what really excites me is, I think those are problems that, or I'd say issues that we're not going to solve in 2025, but I do think that we're going to make some progress. And so I think I'm excited by the potential of digitalization technologies and, yes, AI, to help uncover and unearth some more of those costs and benefits associated with the types of technologies and changes in behavior that we ultimately need to drive. I'm excited by the potential to continue to expand financing models that can, as best as we can, aggregate and understand those costs so that we can have that better reflected in the way that we finance all of these various different types of projects that are all very exciting. And I'm also really excited by continued consumer and corporate demand for all of these various technologies and end uses. There is still, there's a lot of, even in the absence of policy and what seems like, at times slow progress on the policy front, we're seeing tremendous demand from customers to help them reduce their carbon footprint and are very interested in, exploring and experimenting and piloting any way they can to do that. And that's true for commercial customers. That's true for customers in the mush market. That's true for data centers. That's true for industrial end users. There's so much interest and desire in trying to understand, what does it mean to operate in a future without any carbon emissions, or where the cost of that carbon is exorbitantly more than what we pay today. And so I think, all of that taken together, I think we're gonna, the technology is advancing, the demand is there, and I think, I'm excited to see in 25 how we continue to move that ball forward.
Excellent. Well, panelists, I want to say thanks. We've accomplished parts 1 and parts 2. So we're moving into the Q&A piece, and I've got a few questions that Ian has texted me, and I'd ask the panelists to raise your hand if you want to take this on, or I'll assign it to you. All right, so first one. Given the immense increase in demand, how can we keep the electrical system reliable and affordable? And this was actually a big deal at one of the last conferences. The survey came back, reliability was a key thing. I remember Bill saying that. But I'm curious if any panelist wants to volunteer. That's kind of a tough one. Just kind of macro look at how do we keep the grid reliable, with all of the things that we're trying to electrify, et cetera. Does anyone want to take that one on? Just for the audience, no one is raising their hand on that one. So we'll table that
one
one.
of them is, oh,
Mike's going to go for it. Okay.
I can mention one thing. We need to also look into storage. The storage can actually feed into the grid stability. And this is something important that we need to consider. And a lot of countries are actually considering that to realize the grid stability, especially with the introduction of renewables in the grid.
Thanks, Fatu. Perfect. Mike, you want to tag on to that? Mike's internet is incredibly amazing timing. Every time he wants to talk, it freezes. But when Mike comes back, I'll let him tag on to that one and answer that. But he is frozen. It's frozen solid. So next question to the panelists is what role can universities and colleges play in developing the next generation of energy engineers? Anybody?
That's an easy one.
You want to take that one, Fatu?
If anyone, can I?
You may, and then we'll have
Okay,
Marco on right behind you.
Okay, so one of the things, like even Bill mentioned, there are a lot of programs, especially through AEE and maybe other organizations as well. Whether it's through mentorship program in the association, we have one that is going on with AEE itself. We have another program going on also in the summer through Lebanon chapter, and also through the student chapters. Through the association student chapters, there is a lot the universities can do in order to teach the students, have them involved, train them for the future to become probably energy managers or energy auditors in the future. And also they can introduce some of the important topics in their curriculum.
Thanks, Fatu. Mark, you want to tag on?
Yeah, I think Fatu tackled a lot of topics that I would have raised. Certainly the integration of climate science into curriculum and helping understand, I think helping students understand what a role looks like after college and the role that plays in helping manage our carbon footprint is pretty important. I also think there's a lot of additional work that technical colleges can do to help prepare the workforce for this massive need in the service sector that I think is highly reflected in some of the numbers that Mike had. The last point I'll make though is, like the federal government, universities have the opportunity to lead by example. Some of the best case studies that we have for the early stage deployment of decarbonization technologies occur on university campuses and technical colleges. And in those case studies, you often see the engineering student community getting involved in the management of those systems and the reporting of results. And I think there's I would suspect there's a lot of motivation and excitement among those students that are interested in going into those types of fields, playing a role in some aspect of the management and analysis of those highly complex energy systems that are helping decarbonize that university.
Excellent. Mary, you want to tag on?
Sure. Just a quick note here that when we have thought about workforce development strategy at FEMP across the federal workforce, we think about all these different phases, like people who are early in their career trying to figure out, where do they take these skills, where do they tap in? And so for that, I would want to share here with this group, we do have something called an early career professionals program. So if there's someone on this group who's in that place or wants to share that, I can share the link to that program. So we bring everyone through a sort of orientation basics on here are the requirements in the federal government. Here's some of our basic training on things like metering, O&M, energy audits, and then sort of an exposure to the different types of roles in the federal government. But then I never want to forget the other sort of side of the arc. Like then there's people in the middle of their career. That's where we try and do, a lot of recognition for accomplishments and, fostering a community of practice. Then at the end, we also have a lot of people in the federal government who are retiring. And so my message to those folks is like, now is the time for mentorship and training. There's so much institutional knowledge that folks have that I don't want them to feel like, they're leaving without getting a chance to bring in and share that with the next generation. So those are the three parts that we think about on our end.
That's fantastic. I speak from personal experience. I'm a product of DOE funding through the IAC program. So I can say I still think back on those audits. So there's just a lot there that we already have that a lot of people either don't know about or don't take advantage. So thanks for pointing that out. And Mike, you're back. And as soon as you start talking, I know your internet's going to go. So, but let's try to squeeze in whatever you want to talk about, either one of those questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, just echoing, but I think another important element, academia has also played a crucial role in the whole data science, which is beside the educational piece, which is absolutely important, but also the data. I mean, many of today's decisions are based on data, and this is where academia play a crucial role, providing this neutral perspective as well in this one. And I think this is a pool to tap on and to make decisions also, because many in this field are engineers, but on the other hand, we work with people that are maybe not engineers, and the topic is a very technical topic. So it's always good if we can show data, and then we can take advantage of the data. And beside, as I said, at the incubator for the next generation, they want to.
Right on cue. There's going to be all kinds of jokes about Swiss internet now. So thanks, Mike. And it's not his fault. It's the sad part. So wrapping this up, because we got 7 minutes left, I'd like to go around the table and have everyone summarize, what each panelist may have gotten out of this conversation. I want to compliment Mary, and others have been putting all kinds of links in the chat box. That's available to you. Make sure you take advantage of some of those resources. But why don't I circle back and we'll go. Who wants to go first? I'll raise hands on panelists. Who wants to summarize in a minute what they got out of the call or key takeaways? Mike is still frozen, so Mike's off the list right now. Mark, you did this, so I'm going to take that as a hand raise.
This was my thinking about the answer. I think I'm excited about the future. I have been, and I suppose I'm an eternal optimist. That's why I do the job that I do. But I think that there's a lot to be excited about, and I really think, the comments that Mike was starting to make before his internet went out about sector coupling and really the role that we all, all of the, we're not going to be able to do this in industry silos or sector silos. And so I think the more that we can manage this energy transition at a systems level approach, the better off we'll be, and the better impact we'll have. And again, a lot of that comes back to the need for more sector coupling and understanding what does that really look like. Also knowing that's going to look a little bit different in North America than in Europe, than in Asia, than in the global South. So a lot of opportunity there, a lot to be excited about, a lot more to learn as we continue to go through this transition.
How about I unmute? I was thinking Mark, and then Bill raised his hand. So Bill, you want to come out and give summary?
Sure, I'll just, I've really enjoyed this. A lot of great information, dialogue, certainly a lot of big projects, high level, but, AEE people first. I'll just say that, every action that every individual does makes a difference, right? Do you have LED light bulbs in where you live? Do you have a programmable thermostat? Are you all electric? Do you drive an EV? So we got a small staff here, but we provided LED light bulbs for everyone to put in LED light bulbs. Now we're going to do programmable thermostats for everyone. Each action makes a difference. We had a couple of staff attend a few weeks ago a climate action training program, and they started carpooling afterwards. Okay, so I think certainly big projects, we need all that countrywide, but we also need individual actions. Imagine if 100 million people changed to LED light bulbs tomorrow. So it's top down and bottom up, and so our members do a lot of work, but we also need to encourage little steps individually as we move forward. I'm excited about that.
I love that. That's great. And Mary or Fatu, would you like to come out? Or Mike? Mary's out. Okay.
I was just going to actually compliment Fatu's framing around it feeling like the right place, the right time to really make a difference and make an impact. And I just couldn't agree more. It's a time of a lot of change, but it's really encouraging, I think, particularly in these kind of forums where you hear from different global perspectives that all of us are in the right time in our different respective angles to work together to really move this transition forward. So it's just an honor to be a part of it.
Thanks, Mary. Fatu, final thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that energy transition is actually a great potential to everyone. It's actually a great opportunity for everyone to contribute, whether through training or empowerment or advancing technology, innovation. So everyone can contribute to this transition, no matter what field, no matter at what level. And it's a good place and it's a good time to be in it, especially in the energy field right now. Like Mary mentioned, I mean, it's a good time to be in it. So the way that I see it, transitioning to sustainable energy is not actually a choice. It's a responsibility for everyone on this planet.
I love that. That's great. Mike, you want to give it a shot? You feeling
I'll
lucky?
give it a try. I think everything has been said. Fantastic. No, I think it's times now. Let's move into actions, and we can also start on our side, as Bill said, on the behavioral change. So let's start there, and then expand to the environment where we are operating. I stop here.
I'm sorry you had such a tough time, but I loved having you when you were here. All right, so I have a couple comments. I got a lot out of this, and I really appreciate you all. I'm just by nature more application oriented, so I'd like the older people in the audience to really think about where you imagine being a leader, imagine 10 years out, and help the young people work towards that. Create goals like Bill is doing. Create a way for there to be careers and jobs, and I think the older people in the audience or more career people established can do that. And as far as applications like, I've said this many times for 2 years. If you don't understand the tax benefits, credits in the United States, you are missing out. That is a fast track way to get some stuff done. I can speak from personal experience. I can speak from clients. Make sure you take advantage of that, or things like Fatu had mentioned, green funding or other things. And don't forget, and I think Mark or Mike mentioned this, the opportunity of the investment. I mean, if I can do it in Kentucky at 12 cents a kilowatt hour and 0 rebates and cloudy skies and snow today, you can probably do it. If it's your grid price is higher, if you've got a state that's cooperative, and doesn't just love coal, you can probably do it. And the return on investment is probably gonna be about 15%. So 15%, compare that against your 401k, so I mean, this should be like a no-brainer. So that's something I wanted to hit on. But I think that the workforce development training, I think Al Gore said in multiple talks we've had, as well as someone on this call said it, we need about efforts to be doubled. So the motivation should be there on the stick side. The motivation, as Fatu said, we have no choice, but also the upside is huge, and we have to make that happen. So I want to thank everyone here and Ian for setting it up. I think we're right on time, and I'm going to wave goodbye and say thanks again. Ian, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and everyone have a great day.
Yep, thank you. I will just piggybacking off that for just a second. A lot of the topics that were mentioned here were mentioned, or we've had full webinars on throughout earlier this year. So if anyone is an AE member, you have access to the full playlist. I would encourage you to go back and watch some of those. There's a couple on the IRA, CEA, like energy auditing, measurement verification. There's tons of topics and tons of additional information in those. So I would just encourage everyone, if you are an AE member, to go back and take a look through that playlist that is on YouTube. But I can start to wrap it up. I will give a huge thank you to Mike, Mark, Mary, Bill, Fatu, for your insight on the panel, for joining us today, for all of the work you each do in the industry. Just generally, I think these conversations are really important to kind of propel the industry forward. And I think it's very helpful to a lot of the members that were attending. And it's being echoed in the chat right now. There's about 100 thank yous coming through. And then I also will just give another thank you and shout out to Eric for the great moderation and for all of the support you offered in organizing the webinar. So to close this out here, quick reminder for everyone that I will be sending out a follow-up email with the link to a recording of today's webinar, as well as confirmation for your AEE credits. And there will also be a link to view and download the slide deck from as well. And I'll try to include any relevant links that were thrown in the chat today in that same email as well. We do have 2 more webinars before the year wraps up. One is a panel that will discuss tools and techniques for applying fundamental M&V concepts, and that's going to be on December 12th. And then the final webinar of the year will discuss the future of nuclear energy in America and is on December 19th. So if you're looking to get some credits before the year is up, those will be your last chance to do so. And you can register and find more information for both of those on the AEE website. And then lastly, I just want to thank everyone again for attending today's webinar. Thank you to the panel and for Eric for the moderation. We can go ahead and conclude the session. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thank you all. Bye.